A federal judge disguised herself as a poor woman to expose a congressman's mafia, and what she did turned his world into pure fear. They laughed at her. They called her a nobody, just another nosy woman from nowhere. What they could not imagine was that behind that plain cotton dress and dust-covered sandals stood the most feared power of all, the law. That woman was actually Annabella Menezes, a federal judge. She had received an anonymous report in Brasilia. Families were being driven off their land. A powerful congressman ruled over a small town in the northeast, as if he owned the people, their homes, and their future. If she arrived officially, he would hide everything. So she chose another path. She dressed like an ordinary woman, pulled her hair back, wore almost no makeup, and traveled into the blazing heat of a forgotten town called Vila de Prata. Fear lived there like part of the air. At the fruit stand, even the owner was afraid to speak. He warned her in a low voice, "Around here there's only one law, Congressman Bento and his son. Leave while you still can." But Annabella stayed. She sat down, ordered coffee, and watched. Then a white pickup truck pulled up, shining under the sun. Junior, the congressman's son, stepped out, grabbed produce without paying, and humiliated the vendor in front of everyone. Annabella watched in silence until she finally said the words that lit the fuse. "Either pay for it or put it back." It was as if time stopped. No one spoke to Junior that way. No one dared. He stepped toward her, threatening to drag her out by force. But she looked him straight in the eye and said, "Go ahead and try. Then you'll face the consequences." He hesitated. Then he threw the vegetables onto the ground and stormed off in anger. Everyone stared at her as if they had just witnessed a miracle. But that was only the beginning. She rented a small room in the home of Donna Elvira, a retired widow whose husband had died trying to expose a land theft scheme. It was there that Annabella uncovered the one name that changed everything: Afonso Menezes, an honest man, killed after trying to reveal the fraud. Afonso was her father. Late that night, hidden by darkness, Annabella made her way to an abandoned registry office. Inside, she pushed aside an old cabinet and found a hidden compartment. There were original deeds, real land records, and recent falsified documents that could destroy the congressman's empire. She photographed everything, recorded everything. But when she tried to leave, 3 men were waiting at the door. Valdir, one of Bento's enforcers, had her seized and thrown into the back of an old truck. They took her to the congressman's ranch. There, in a luxurious office, the most feared man in the state sat in front of her and asked, "Who do you think you are?" Even dirty, exhausted, and tied up, Annabella answered without fear, "I know exactly who you are. I know your scheme. I know the dead you left behind. And I know your time is over." He laughed. "No one is going to believe you. By tomorrow you won't even exist." That was when she said the one sentence that froze his blood. "My father's name was Afonso Menezes." The expression on Bento's face changed instantly. Now he understood. The daughter of the only man who had ever tried to stand against him had come back. Annabella appeared weak, but while he talked, she quietly pressed a hidden button on her phone. It was an emergency protocol that sent her location directly to a federal tactical unit. Help was already on the way. Furious, Bento ordered his men to take her to an old mill, a place where people disappeared and never came back. Surrounded by darkness, rust, and fear, Annabella stood firm and said, "Your world is ending. The state is coming for you." He raised his gun. Then the ground began to tremble. A thunderous sound came from above. A military helicopter cut through the night. Floodlights tore open the darkness. Black-clad agents dropped by rope. A voice thundered from a loudspeaker. "Congressman Bento Siqueira, Federal Police. You are surrounded." Valdir and the other enforcers dropped to the ground. Junior was arrested at home. Documents were seized. Accounts were frozen. And Bento, the man who had ruled through terror for 3 decades, fell to his knees as handcuffs closed around his wrists. The next morning, the town woke up to a different sun. People came out of their homes and saw police vehicles in the square. They saw Junior being taken away. And then they saw her. No longer Anna, no longer the simple woman in the cotton dress. Now she stood before them as Judge Annabella Menezes, wearing a suit, hair tied back, alive and unshaken. Donna Elvira cried. Old Mr. Zay, the fruit vendor, looked at her with pride. That one small moment, when she had stood up for a box of tomatoes, had helped save an entire town. Annabella took the microphone, and her voice echoed across the square. The fear is over. Everything that was stolen will be returned to its rightful owners. And it was. Months passed. Families returned to their land. The town school was rebuilt and renamed in honor of Donna Elvira's late husband.